Hello, everyone. I am in the New York studio here, sitting down with Ariel Horn, a little bit of a trip down to your city right now. Ariel Horn is the executive producer for all the exciting shows that we could see at Riot Games, including Worlds this year. How's it going, Ariel?
Great. It's definitely been fun coming back home and actually being able to sleep in my bed for a show.
Yeah, convenient, right? Instead of, for me in particular, I went to Europe and Asia, followed you guys around for that for the past couple of years, so it was it's nice to have that being in America this year, I think.
Yeah.
Well, either way, let's talk. You actually have not done, to my knowledge, an interview outside of Riot before about what your role is. I could try to fumble through that because I know you have so many hats, but you're probably better at communicating that.
Sure. So primarily what I do is I help to grow our global broadcast team. It started in 2013 when we launched the LCS, so I was building the team in Los Angeles and in Cologne. And since then, since we've gotten that going, now started to focus on sort of our big bets in our live events, so Worlds, and also in our strategy and how we're going to grow globally. So taking some of the building blocks that we've had here in success in LCS and figuring out how we're going to have that sort of manifest in the other regions. Yeah,
you actually, I know you mentioned building up the LA and Cologne teams, but that wasn't actually your first show, Esports show at Riot. What was the first thing that you did with Riot?
So in 2012, I had been working with Blizzard. Actually, had been working on their broadcast for BlizzCon since 2009. It was a scrappy sort of start in that year, and so we've seen sort of the growth and the professionalism come up. When I met the guys at Riot and they had these dreams of creating a league and a structure, they had already sort of committed to that Worlds run without really having a team internally. And so I came in, we had about 3 weeks to prepare for the first Worlds. That was the scene of sort of our first big show. We had done PAX in 2012, but then there was the show at LA Live, which is famous for us unfortunately losing the internet and having to sort of try to chase it down. There were 8 hours of us trying to get it fixed, and then Brandon going out and talking to our players, and us rebounding a couple days later and building that world final that a lot of us sort of recognize and love. Yeah, it started in 2012 with Riot, and then in 2013, we came on full-time and started building the team that we have today.
But even outside of the esports stuff with Riot and the Blizzard stuff, I remember having been cited as working on other big projects out there in the sports world, traditional sports world. What have you done there?
I actually was a bio major in college, and when I was starting, I pretty much thought I was going to be some kind of doctor or scientist or something, and I started working the TV station there at a small school in upstate New York, and just got really bit by the bug, and I wanted to kind of take that as a career. And so I went through a couple of years of trying to make it in TV. And one of the interesting things is that I always wanted to try to find the intersection of sports and technology. I didn't realize that it was going to be esports at the time. But I left NBC, kind of took a big shot at leaving and starting something on my own. And sometime around 2009, we had another friend who had been working at a channel actually here in New York, and he had come to us. I remember this one day, comes into our office and he said, Blizzard's looking to live stream their BlizzCon. And I don't know that much about it. What do you guys think about trying to tackle that? I remember at the time, I was thinking, well, that sounds cool. I don't actually know that much about live streaming events either. And so we're like, screw it, let's try this. And it was a series of pretty interesting days where we're calling Akamai and trying to get our own CDNs. And it was a different time, right? And we put on that first BlizzCon, and it was funny, when the numbers came back, everyone was really surprised. And it was just like a really small portion of the BlizzCon. And that by that next year, this had become our biggest client.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the fact that all these big shows, I mean, we've got Madison Square Garden behind us on screen. All these things all fall under your domain. And so I'd love to get some insight into what it's been like for you building out from that initial Worlds to Asia, Europe, and now back again in North America. You've gone from just sort of having everybody up on a stage to having this sort of theater and around feeling. It's a very, very different thing that we've seen just over the past couple of years. So what has that iterative process been like for you, and what's it been like building out all these shows?
So every year's had different challenges, I think. In 2012, we had the idea that we wanted to put an orchestra on the stage and kind of celebrate it with league music, and we wanted to try to use technology to lift up players. And so that was our big thing. Storytelling was just starting to catch in there. 2013 was a year where we had experienced some growth, and our big move was we wanted to play our show in sort of a hallowed sports arena. And so Staples made a lot of sense. And so I think for a lot of us that year was very special. I remember walking around, those aisles actually that we see in the background. I'm pretty sure I saw you, and I saw a bunch of sort of like friends from the industry, and it was like a magical night of being there and just being like, wow, this is something that's maybe is more special than we even expected, right?
Yeah.
And after that, we had put on sort of a bigger opening ceremony, and we realized that we need to start injecting symbolism. We're a very young sport, if you want to call it that. And I think we don't have the benefit of history, and so we have to kind of decide where we want to inject that symbolism. So we had our Summoner's Cup, and of course Dustin Beck pulling the drape was a famous moment from 2012. In 2013, we wanted to kind of set it out in its own sort of island. And as we move into 2014, we knew we were going to be in Asia, and so we were like, well, we actually want to take some of the nods from Olympics, which is that there's something special about the host country, right? You want to have a combination of global and local. And so there was this crazy concept of, well, what if we try to take some elements from Asian culture and mix it in, because we knew we were going to be in this big venue. And then after that, we started to realize that we can't just go bigger and bigger and bigger, but we have to actually go better. And so we started investing in a lot of technology and in statistics and in LED and in just different ways of serving that content. And so that's where we landed in 2015. We had a round show where we felt strongly that the sight lines and the ability to kind of view a show in that orientation could be the very best experience, because when you go to a lot of sporting events, you can see the fans on the other side. And then coming into this year, we want you to watch this and be really excited. If this is your first time, encountering esports, we want you to kind of get it and have that aha moment when you come into the Staples Center and you say, wow, this is something that's incredible, and now I get it.
Yeah. What is it like building these shows out? Because they don't just, for the audience, they just suddenly tune in, it's all there, it's all happening, it's all done. Yeah. For you, I assume that's not as easy.
Yeah.
It's probably much more in depth.
Yeah. For one thing, the team is really kind of a bigger team now. In 2012, it was a really scrappy team, and we were just kind of bootstrapping and figuring out how to do it, and just had a very clear vision of what we wanted to see. Wanted to focus around elevating the players to be kind of like gods with cameras and having them not hide behind those monitors and kind of be obscured, which is what I think had been happening in other esports before that. And we wanted to be professional. We wanted to tell great stories like the Olympics did that would make you feel like you had as much connection to those players as if you had known them your whole life. And as we kind of moved on and elevated, we've wanted to inject more and more complexity into it. That said, each year, we've also tried to give ourselves more time to plan. In that first year in 2012, we had 3 weeks. After that, I think for Staples in 2013, I think it was 2 months or 3 months. 2014, maybe 6. 2015, maybe 9. Now we're getting to the point where we know that we need a full 12-month cycle around planning. The team needs to be focused on that challenge, which is putting a show in the most prestigious venue possible, but also understanding the challenge, which is namely that the best venues are really hard to book because they have active sports events in every day practically. And if you want to be in the Staples Center, if you want to be in Madison Square Garden, you obviously have to deal with the Lakers, you have to deal with the Kings, you have to deal with the Knicks or the Rangers. We can't just say, hey, MSG, you think you can have the teams play away for a week so we can have our World Final? So we need to increasingly push those goalposts out so that we can succeed, because it's actually insane engineering, and there's a lot of challenge involved with putting up these shows.
For you, just as we're starting to wrap up, reflecting on these past several years, and again returning back to LA, what has this whole experience been like for you of seeing, again, that initial show way back in 2012 all the way up to, coming back and just sort of seeing the team level up and things pop up, the features team, the PTL, like there are so many things that fall into your domain that weren't a thing even just a couple years ago. So, what has this whole experience been like for you?
Yeah, it's actually pretty emotional for me. It's an honor to see some of those core concepts become things that are now mainstream within esports, be it cameras on players, good storytelling features, stage design, kind of the layout of the shows, the basic cadence of these events. But the thing that really excites me is seeing the growth of our global team. And it's not necessarily the most sexy thing, because what's really ends up being sort of noticed is the flashy stuff. But what I really get excited about is investing in people. And now I've had the ability to help to hire broadcast managers like myself in these different countries, and seeing them start to grow, and seeing when we come together for Worlds that is not just an English broadcast, that I've got a matrix of TVs that shows us what's happening in real time in Korea, in China, in Brazil, in Turkey, in Russia, and so many other regions, right? So that's really exciting. And then I guess the other thing is that in the traditional sports industry, no one ever goes on Twitter and takes comments. Like, executive producers don't go on Twitter.
Yeah, because you solicit feedback constantly during the shows. Hey, show's up and running. What do you think of this? Or what do you guys we'll iterate on this.
Exactly, and I've always wanted to make sure that we were accountable to our production. And there have been technical issues. There have been problems, and I want to be the one to explain what's happening. But then also, I know that our audience is unique, and these are passionate, not only viewers, but players of our game. So they pick up on a lot of nuanced stuff, and they give us great ideas. And I think it's our duty to be open and receptive to receive that. So when I'm online, if you see me, I want you to give me the feedback. Like when I say, hey, feedback, welcome, all that stuff is getting to the right people. And so many of those advancements have come directly from our audience. So I'm super, super proud about that. And at the end of the day, we could rush toward being more sporty, and we could do a lot of things. But I think what we really need to do is to keep our core audience in mind and not try to push the envelope beyond kind of what it naturally is growing. And I think it's going to take care of itself, right? The things that we talk about and the sort of criticisms, those things will take care of itself as the pie gets grown and things like that. So I do think that it's important for us to stay true to our initial kind of core values around why are we making this, who are we making this for, and make sure that we keep challenging ourselves on that. And I think the rest kind of works itself out.
Anything to tease for World Finals?
The one thing I'll say is that we've got, don't want to get too far into, because I want it to be a good surprise, but we have reflected on kind of the past bunch of years, hopefully taking, some of the more resonant themes and pushing the boundary on some others. And I hope that it's something that you'll be proud of, and certainly we'll get the feedback from the audience after it happens.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Ariel, for joining me. It's been a pleasure to sit down and talk to you about all the stuff that you've done in the past couple of years, and looking forward to finals and just a little time here. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of our coverage of all things esports here at Yahoo Esports.